We are almost ready to go live, everyone, on Facebook. Oh, and here we are. Okay, Robert, I guess I'm gonna just start real quick with the intro, and then the rest of the time is yours.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, welcome everybody on Facebook Live as well as Zoom. My name is Hillary Pressican. I am the program coordinator for community development for the Native Arts Professional Development, or NAPD, trainings here at First Peoples Fund. Thank you for joining us for another awesome week for our FPF Resilience webinar series. Today we have the amazing Robert Martinez here today to talk about his topic, protecting your images online. So the newly created FPF Resilience webinar series has been developed to continue our work to enhance the business and entrepreneurial skills of Native artists and cultural bearers, as well as expand our virtual community during these rapidly changing times. In this bi-weekly webinar series, FPF and our nationally recognized Native Arts Professional Development trainers will deliver values-based, topic-focused webinars on Mondays, followed by technical assistance, office hours on Wednesdays to follow up on and answer any questions regarding Monday's webinar. This will be the last one we have before we hit July. I can't believe it's already July later on this week. But we do have two really amazing webinars coming up, July 13th and 15th with Jennifer Martell from Standing Rock Nation, who will be focusing on networking on a virtual platform. And we have on July 27th and 29th, we have James Pagodas from the Colville Nation on a performing arts topic. With Rolling Res Arts, we are still doing our Wednesday sessions and our Saturday Art Live. If you want to learn more about that, definitely check out our Facebook page and our website. And as many of you probably know, because we've been throwing it all over our social media pages, the application has been opened for our fellowship and CSA award applications. Again, check out our Facebook page and our website for more information. Just a few reminders to everybody listening before we start that this is a recorded webinar, which will be available within 48 hours of the concluding session on our Facebook page for FPF. Please keep yourself on mute in Zoom, but we will be, once Robert's done with his presentation, allowing attendees that are in our Zoom box to come in and join Robert with a discussion on this topic. So that's going to be really cool. We do welcome questions throughout the presentation, both on Facebook Live as well as on Zoom, which I will collect for Robert and share with him throughout his presentation. And also I will be sharing the information to our Facebook, YouTube page, the survey that we would love anybody and everybody to fill out to really guide us in the right direction of how our programming is going virtually for everybody, because we're here to serve you and to give you the content you need. So without further ado, I'm going to do a quick little land acknowledgement, and it will be all Robert. So I would like to respectfully acknowledge that the land that First Peoples Fund is on, and where I'm calling from while hosting this webinar, is on Lakota land and part of the Oshete Shakoween here in the sacred Hislapa Black Hills. I also recognize that many of you participating in this live webinar or are watching this recording come from many places near and far, and I want to acknowledge the traditional lands and caregivers of those lands that you are on as well. So it is my honor again to introduce Robert Martinez. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hillary. I sure appreciate it. Hithiti Tausini, which is Arapaho for hello, good afternoon. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm Northern Arapaho. I'm from the Wind River Reservation in central Wyoming. I've been a professional artist for over 20 years, mostly painting and drawing. You can see some of my stuff in the promotional materials. Those are paintings. I'm also a sculptor when I can. I'm a former First Peoples Fund Artist and Business Leadership Fellow, a former Cultural Capital Fellow, and a Native Artist Professional Development Trainer. So when I can and First Peoples Fund will let me, I get to go into communities and teach a little bit more about this business side of the art world. Today, we'll be talking about some things to think about on how to protect your images online. So please bear with me. This is my first webinar. So if it's a little bit goofy, it's because it's my first time. So there we go. Protecting your images online, presented by Robert Martinez, the Robert Martinez Power Hour. All right. During our NAPDs, we go through our workbook that we give to attendees, and this is part of the workbook. This is in the marketing section, and this is where we'll mainly spend our time today. And we won't be covering everything in these bullet points. We'll be covering a little bit of the artist portfolio, the digital catalog, website tips, e-commerce and social media. And like I said, this is from our marketing section, which is matched with First People's Fund's value of fortitude. The artist pictured here is Teresa Secord. She's an awesome artist who does a great basketry work. She's also a trainer and a First People's Fund fellow. She has just done a First People's Fund training on intellectual property and copyright, which has some great info. And Teresa will be able to get that info for you if you'd like it at the end of this webinar. It's well worth looking at, and it's really related to what we're going to be talking about today. So also in our book, we give you this little list of artist must-haves. So it has the artist portfolio, what you need for your artist portfolio. Most of that is self-explanatory, and we're going to really be talking about your digital catalog and your promotional materials. What we're mainly talking about, especially with the topic of being online and trying to sell your work, is the photos. Because, geez, the last 3 months have shown us that with the pandemic and a lot of shows being taken offline or rescheduled or canceled outright, an artist really needs to have good photos of their work to represent their work for people that are not able to see it in person. And of course, you need those type of photos for submissions to galleries or admissions to shows. And I think instead of being less important, they're just going to become more important as time goes on. Like I said, in the last 3 months, many of the major art shows across the nation for all artists have been canceled, including Indian Market, and they have moved to a digital platform that they're implementing. And so you need to have digital photos of your work. It's very important. But with having those digital photos and sharing those digital photos, you do open yourself up to somebody potentially misusing those photos and misrepresenting you as an artist. But in researching this topic and coming across some different information, I actually found the silver bullet. I found the one true problem solver of the problem. The only way you can ever make sure that your images are never misused is not to use any. Don't post any, don't send any, don't print any. But of course, that's not possible for a successful artist nowadays. You have to have digital photos. It's very important that you have some kind of website. Almost needed is any kind of e-commerce platform. You have to be able to tell your story on social media. That's really just the way it is now. So in our NAPDs, we give you some information in those workbooks. And here's the page that we give you. It's that you should have a professional photographer create high quality photos of your most recent work. Now, most of us can't afford a professional photographer, so we end up taking those images ourselves. There's an awesome information page and some diagrams in our workbook that First People's Fund Hillary can get to you. Also, there's a good tutorial recently that photographer Roxanne Best has done for First People's Fund. It's great. You can do it with your smartphone. She goes through a lot of stuff. Great tutorial. This page also says CDs should include 20 JPEG images. That might be updated to jump drives too here in the future. Many shows now just have an online submission process, but again, you need digital images for those. So pay close attention to their size requirements. We're going to go over a little bit more. 300 DPI, remember that? 4 megabytes, excuse me, maximum. And then we give you an IRL for iPhone photography school. One thing I can't say enough is that you need a program or an app that will allow you to edit and save your photos in different sizes and formats. And you need to be familiar and you need to be comfortable with how to use that app. I use Photoshop. Some people use Corel Draw. There's a bunch of different other apps. I'm sure that Roxanne's tutorial will name a few, but you really need to be comfortable because you need to send your photos and post your photos in a number of different forms, in different ways, file formats, sizes. And that sizing and format issue is really key when we first start talking about protecting your images. So a couple of things. 300 DPI is print quality. That is the quality that printers will need to make any kind of reproduction of your artwork. This is what you'll be asked for business cards and pamphlets, and sometimes even for magazine or news articles, promos for shows. If you are an artist at a show, and especially if you win any ribbons or any awards, you'll be asked for images that are print quality so they can put it in their latest issue and get your name out there. And then 75 DPI is digital projection quality, otherwise known as the interwebs, right? So anything lower than 75 DPI is going to be grainy and pixelated, okay? Now, most web designers or graphic designers or anybody that's going to put anything on the web and it does it professionally will say that they need an image that is between 75 and 200 DPI. And that's so that most people will have some bit of image coverage, but will still look good. So when you start saving and sizing your images with whatever DPI is correct, you've got to know who your ultimate image viewer is. Is it going to be an internet shopper? Are you sending those images to be printed? So ultimately it's going to be on a business card. Are you sending those images to museum or gallery staff? Is it going to be on social media? You need to know that to know which size of image you're going to post. And this comes in to protecting your images by this, okay? If your image is at a high resolution and a large size, the easier it's going to be for somebody to reproduce, steal your image without your permission. Let me read that again. If your image is at a high resolution and at a large size, the easier it's going to be for somebody to click, drag, steal, save photo, do a screenshot, and use it without your permission. So when you resize, try to use the smallest, lowest resolution photo you can, and here's the caveat, and still look good for digital projection for your website or social media without using a big, large one, okay? Use the smallest, lowest resolution you can and still have it look good for digital projection. Resizing your photos is the first, easiest, and most effective way of protecting your image. I hope everybody got that. So here's an image of mine. And what I'm using to resize it is an old version of Photoshop. So if you look at the height, it says 1290 pixels, which makes the width 1037 pixels, which makes the actual printed size of this image 4.3 inches by 3.4 inches. So really small. But if you notice, the resolution is 300. This is a stereotypical case of what a couple platforms like Zapplication or Call for Entry will ask for. They want your pictures this size on show entries. So that's what Zapplication and Call for Entry are for shows across the nation. Artists can submit to them, but they ask for the photos for this. So if I'm using this photo for that, and it's that small, but it's for these platforms, I know that this image is probably not going to be used for anything else, this particular one, right? But if somebody asks me for a big image, like an 8x10 at 300, and I don't know them, I don't know what they're going to be using that image for. So I should find out. I need to find out. Remember, your photos are being used to show your work when the viewer is not actually there to see in person. There's a lot of stories out there about great artists not getting into shows because they don't have good photos. So it's imperative that you have good photos, but it's also imperative that you know where they're going and what size they are, who's using them, and for what, okay? Here's our list of promo materials that we do in our NAPDs. Business cards, brochures, postcards, tote bags, patches, stickers, and we give you a couple of URLs for business cards. So if you're sending your work to a printer, print these, they're going to want a 300 DPI for business cards, but they might not want it very big. Business cards might only want it a couple inches. For brochures, they might want a 4x6 or maybe even an 8x10, but not usually. Postcards are the same, maybe 5x7, but they're going to want print quality images, and they're going to want them in whatever format they use. This is it's the thing that you just have to deal with. You start tearing out your hair when you start getting into it, because one graphic designer will want a PDF, then another graphic designer will want a JPEG image. Another graphic designer may want a Photoshop image. So you have to have access to some way to change your file format and resize them. I can't overstate that. Patches and stickers, they might want a lower quality image because they don't need all the detail. So be aware of where you're sending your image and to whom. Again, this is Teresa Secord's information for her business card. So remember, the bigger, higher resolution photo, the easier it is for someone to steal. Okay, here's the websites and website tips, excuse me, that First People's Fund gives when we get to that point. Make it easy to navigate. Okay, we say use high quality image. I'm going to put that with a caveat, with the lowest resolution and smallest scale that still look good. You might have to play around with it a little bit, especially on your website, depending on what kind of website you have. Maybe it's a WordPress website, maybe it's another one. Websites these days are so much more easy to update and rework, and even to figure out composition on how you want your individual page to be. So remember, with the lowest res and smallest scale, that still look good, okay? And then of course, you have the other tips: drive people to your website, have your site on your promotional materials, create links from other sites, add your site's your URL to your email signature, right? So those are fairly standard. Now, I'm betting some people out there are saying, okay, Rob, what about watermarks? Well, in addition to my fine art career, my wife and I also have a graphic design business. She is a graphic design master with ninth degree black belt, you might say, in Photoshop. And I've seen her completely get rid of watermarks in about 10, 15 minutes just to teach me how effective they are. They are limited. They're limited. They have limited effect. An awesome graphic designer, like I said, they can get rid of them like that. But I am going to give you a few examples just so you can have a few options if you choose to do a watermark or not. But first you have to ask yourself, how do you want your images to look online? Let's say somebody that's never heard of you, never seen your work, goes to your website, and the first thing that they see is your image, and it's got a great big giant watermark, and they can't actually see your work. Is that what you want? Or perhaps your watermark is a little less inobtrusive, and they can kind of see your work. So here's my website. It's very simple. I have all my information there, you know. And you'll notice that I use a very small image, but it's fairly high quality. It's as small and as low resolution as I could get before really losing what you're seeing, right? And if you can see my my little window, you can see exactly how big that painting is. That's a 4 foot by 6 foot painting. My website, I don't update it often enough, but I try to. And I did go on it, and just to prove my own point, I looked through my images, and there are still a couple images that are too big on there. I need to fix that. Now, I don't use watermarks because I want the viewer to see the whole image with no blemishes. If it's their first time seeing my work online, I want their view to be unobstructed by anything. I am aware of image theft and image misuse, and it's happened to me. It's happened a few times. Luckily enough, I was able to merely tell the user to stop and that was my image, and they did, or I had them credit me at least, and they did. But yeah, it's happened, and I think it happens to most artists at one point or another. But you have to weigh the pros and cons. Should I not put my work out there for everybody to see? Or should I really be worried about somebody that's going to click, drag, and print out a really small, poor copy of my work and paste it on their office wall? You know, I've gone to some of my tribal programs and actually seen that and got mad at people saying, hey, you know, you could have just asked and I could have sent you one, you know, or give me a couple bucks and I get you a little tiny print. But yeah, instead of that, they'd rather have a really crappy printed out print of my work. So, you know, it's 6 to 1, half a dozen of the other, but you really have to ask yourself, how do I want to represent myself online? Here's an example of Ben Pease's website. Ben Pease is a First Peoples Fund Arts and Business Leadership Fellow. He's also with me, a co-creator of the Creative Indigenous Collective, great friend of mine. He does awesome work. You can see his image is also fairly small, and it's a little bit protected via his e-commerce platform and the way they place the title and the cart button slightly over the image. I would say that this is a good happy medium if you'd like to use a water for your work. I mean, you can see the total painting and it's not too obtrusive. So the e-commerce platforms nowadays are really customizable, and they let you use watermarks or not. And some of them will even let you play around where you want to put them in an unobtrusive place or wherever. But you really have to ask yourself, what's right for you? The other side of the spectrum, this is an example of a very talented photographer locally here in Wyoming. His name is Oli Moss, and he specializes in rodeo photos. He goes all over the US and takes great photos, but apparently he has a big problem with people ripping off his work. So as you can see, he uses a full picture watermark. It has his web info on there, his name, stolen from. It says do not screenshot. And I can say that this method is, while discouraging to any would-be photo thief, it's really detrimental to the legit viewer also. I mean, it looks like a great photo, I think. I mean, but I can't see some of it. Some of it maybe. I really can't see her expression. But I mean, if this is what he has to resort to cut down on image theft, then, you know, so be it. So when deciding to use watermarks or not on your photos, keep that in mind. This is John Pepion's Instagram page. John Pepion is a Picanti Ledger artist. He's also a First People's Fund alum and First People's Fund NAPD trainer. He does awesome contemporary ledger work. And he's a good friend and a fellow Creative Indigenous Collective artist. You can see his images are small, but they're good quality. And they're kind of mixed with either the background or other images. So they're not directly transferable. Like I said, you couldn't click and drag. You'd have to put some work in if you were going to use these to reproduce or directly copy or transfer. On his Facebook page, you can see he does the same thing, but some of his stuff he'll put at an angle. So you have a different perspective. It's not upright and flat with something that you'd see displayed. He does this for a number of his pieces, and it's a simple, easy way to protect your photos online if you're just taking a snapshot. So with your social media, your collectors or followers want to see in progress shots. They want to see the finished product, but this is a good way to do it without having to do too many security measures, you know. I do want to stress though that if someone really wants to use your images without your permission, they will. A few years ago, right before Indian Market, I was walking around down in the plaza in Santa Fe, came across a gallery, and I happened to look in the window and saw one of John's pieces in there, and it was large, but it was very poor quality. It was pixelated. The reproduction wasn't that great, and so that stuck in my mind. And I walked a little bit. Same gallery, great big store window. I saw one of Monty Yellowbird's pieces, same way. Really poor quality print. And then I saw a Terrence Jarda piece that was really poor quality. And I know all of these artists, and they really want their work represented in a great way. So what I did is I got on my phone, I took pictures of it, sent this to them, took a picture of the gallery name, sent it to them, and I said, hey, I see you have your work down here, but I mean, it doesn't look good. Are you aware of this? And all three of them, you know, got back with me really fast. John was the first one. He said no. I told him what was up. So I went in and got the contact information from the gallery. He called the gallery owner, read him the riot act. The gallery owner was really taken aback. And then, of course, because Monty and Terrence were there, they actually came over to that gallery and talked to that gallery owner. He ended up taking all of their work out of the front window because he hadn't contacted any of them, gotten their permission for reproducing or using their images. He had straight up just got on the net, looked up ledger art, found some stuff he liked, clicked, dragged, printed out, pasted it on some foam core, and put it right in the front window. Right in the front window during Indian Market. So when it comes to sizing images, that's one of the two things I want you to put in your toolkit. The second and most powerful thing, I think, is the artist network. Our most powerful weapon is each other. Protecting our images is paramount to all of us. Your eyes can't be everywhere, but your clients or your fans or your friends can see stuff that you don't see in places that you aren't at. And by that same token, if you see something sketchy, you need to let other artists know. I firmly believe that. I do that all the time. I've done that for 3 or 4 different native photographers. I've seen their work in a couple of sketchy Instagram pages, on some funny Facebook posts. Let them know. They got right on it. Like I said, I've known John. I've seen John's work a couple of times and helped him out, and he's done the same thing for me. He's called me when he saw some of my work being promoted, and I might not have known about it. So that network of artists and artists helpers, fans, followers is really probably our most powerful weapon in seeing it, finding out about it, and then of course helping us do something about it. Not all artists are independently wealthy enough to afford a lawyer to get a copyright or image dispute going. I know very few that might have that amount of funds. But we can get our followers and stuff to actually report a page or report a picture. I know that's helped for a lot of other artists. Have a picture or page taken down. I know that has helped. So it's your personal following, and then of course the uh, artists group as a whole, artists everywhere. I'm willing to help you out if I see anything that I think you might not like. So be aware that is our probably our most powerful weapon, and I'm going to restate that as we go on. So here is my personal page. I have 2. I have a personal and a business page. I just put straight business stuff on my business page, shows, things that are going on. On my personal page, I do sometimes post things about my family or funny stuff. I don't post too much drama. I try to keep it light because this is a business too. I mean, collectors want to know a little bit about you and your family and what you do, but mainly I'm on social media to promote my artwork. So be aware of that. This particular portion I want to touch on is not only protecting your images, but protecting yourself. Please be aware of what you put on social media. If you're putting a picture of your painting in your studio, and you take a picture in your studio, be aware of what's in the background of your studio. Let's say there's a window in the background and it shows how it locks. I mean, somebody can easily figure out, reverse the image of how to get into your studio possibly. Or let's say you post some brand new possessions that you have on your personal page. Hey, I just got a brand new air compressor. Somebody can come and steal that. They see that on your social media page. Trips for shows. There's been a lot of people talked about how they posted how they were leaving and then come back and they don't have anything left in their house. So be aware for your own safety and for the safety of your family, what you post on social media. This is another friend of mine, a First Peoples fellow alum and a First Peoples Fund trainer, Roxanne Best. She takes some awesome photos. You can see from this particular photo how she's using a slight watermark, but it's more of a tag about her business, Roxtography, uniquely you. And you'll see it doesn't interfere with the main theme in that particular photo. This is another way I like to see watermarks used, or I don't know if you could even call that a watermark. So remember, when it comes to watermarks and how to put them on and using social media, remember to ask yourself what is best for you. So a little recap. Be mindful of what's in your social media pictures. Limit what kind of information you put online, your personal info, info about your trips, maybe. That's kind of hard, especially when you're an artist, because you want people to go to those shows. You want people to know you're going to be at those shows. Maybe new purchases, watch out for. ID information. I see some artists posting like acceptance letters and things of that nature. Sometimes they forget to black out their personal address. So if you don't want your address known, it's probably not a good idea to do stuff like that. But be aware. Again, build your network. That might help you in the event that your images are misused. If you see other artists' imagery being used in a way that seems inappropriate, tell them, let them know. They're more apt to do that if you help them. Our most powerful weapon is our combined voices. I think there have been some fairly high profile cases where especially native art has been used in fashion, or native fashion artists have been ripped off. And the only thing that really stopped or put a stop or made the company quit was a public outcry. It wasn't lawyers, it really wasn't a lawsuit, but it was more a public outcry for being culturally inappropriate, or just not paying attention to copyright for intellectual property. So again, our most powerful weapon is our combined voices. Here is what we have for e-commerce in the NAPDs. We give you a few examples: Squarespace, Paul Mahina Designs, 8th Generation, Bethany Yellowtail, and then some that you might use: eBay, Etsy, Amazon. I use Fine Art America. They straight up tell you what size your images need to be and in what platform. They also tell you if you only have a small image, they won't be able to print out this big reproduction. So they'll tell you, which is great. Another option that I use, because Fine Art America doesn't have everything I want, I use TeePublic for my graphic designs. And they're another one that tells you exactly how big of an image that they need. But here's the thing with TeePublic. They are very quick to respond to any intellectual property theft. And they're pretty strict when it comes to their own. I know that because some images of mine, they've asked me if I was directly taking it out with some other company. So be aware. And also, if you're using any kind of e-commerce platform or site, ask them what their policy is for intellectual property. If somebody is caught using one of pictures that they got from them on something else that they're not supposed to, what do they do? What are they prepared to do? Especially if you're paying for the site, you're paying for a profile, they should tell you what in fact that they are willing to do in that case. So here we are, gang. Artist images. I want you to ask yourself, how are your images going to be used? Where are they going? Are you posting them on social media, or are you sending them to a printer? They should be different sized if you're doing either, okay? Are they going to a show? Are you sending them on a USB drive or a CD? Are you sending them online? If you're applying to a show, make sure you read the small print and see, are these images just used for their jurying process, or will they be used later on for promotion too? A lot of times they will be, so be aware. Make yourself proficient at resizing and reformatting your images so that you can use your images for all of those things, especially for promoting yourself. Nobody's going to promote yourself but you, so you have to be well-versed in it. Watermark. Will it be good for you? Won't it be good for you? Is that what you want? As I've told you, they really don't stand up to anybody that's really dedicated to stealing your image. So keep that in mind. With your photos on social media, what's your social media goal? Are you there to show people the in-process shot, the final shot? Ask yourself that. Also, what's in your social media images? Is there background? Is there stuff in the background that doesn't need to be there? Did you black out or blur or something, all the information that you don't want to share? And then for your e-commerce platform, how is it helping you? Ask them, how are they helping you, or how will they help you in the future if your images aren't used correctly? And then last to ask yourself is, how is your artist network helping, right? Have you ever seen anything that was sketchy for another artist you might like and told them, hey, are you cool with this, right? Just help them out, and they're more apt to help you out in return. But really, the biggest thing we have is our network, is each other. If we're not going to help each other, no one is, right? So keep that in mind. Here's some reporting URLs for you to use. The first is the Native American Rights Fund. The second is the Duboff Law Office. Mr. Duboff is an awesome lawyer who literally wrote the book on intellectual property and copyright trademark law as it pertains to Native artwork. Great guy, but he is a lawyer and he does charge money. So be aware of that unless he takes you on pro bono. And that's, probably what many of us, I know I would have to, because I don't have the money for a lawyer, would have to have when looking at a lawsuit. And then, of course, there's the Department of the Interior, the Indian Arts and Crafts Board. Again, with these three, this is more of a last resort, really. I think do as much as you can with resizing and keeping your eyes open and making sure that your images are where they're supposed to be, rather than having to resort to any of these, because it's going to take a long time and money for you to win any lawsuit, I think. But that's just my opinion. Like, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a security expert either. Here is First Peoples Fund's information. For more assistance, perhaps you'd like to know more on copyright and intellectual property, or on how to take photos from Roxanne. Here's the org, the phone number, the info at firstpeoplesfund.org. You can also get a hold of me on my social media. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Or if you want to just get to First Peoples Fund and they'll send me the question, I'll get back to you as much as I can. I can follow First Peoples Fund on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And that concludes my individual portion of the webinar.
Great. Well, thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. That was wonderful. We do have a couple questions from some people on Facebook Live. And while I'm asking those questions, I'm going to allow the other participants that are actually in the Zoom call. There's about 6 of them. I'm going to bring them into our discussion as well. So as soon as I ask a question, I'll bring them in. But one of the questions, actually a couple of them came from Gus Yellowhair. And you answered a couple of his already, but there was one he was asking, can you break down the acronyms like JPEG, et cetera, and probably DPI, just some of the acronyms that you did share throughout your presentation for people that are like new to this world?
Sure. I can break down a few. Some of them I don't even know what they mean. So DPI is dots per inch. That's one you should really know, is dots per inch. And then of course there's the 300 print quality versus 75 print quality. Some of the other ones, JPEG, PDF, PNG, a lot of those I don't know exactly what they mean. I think JPEG is, oh, I actually kind of used to know that one, but my computer lingo is almost nil. PDF, portable document format, Photoshop, that's just for if you're using the Photoshop program. Really, if you have a tough time, just make sure you write it down. That's what I do. Or I save the email that I get. When it comes to the real effect, the real down and dirty lingo, and you're talking graphic design speak, I just hand it over to my wife, unfortunately, and then quit listening. I hope that helps, or not. I'm sorry.
I think Gus appreciated it. And the last question that he had, he was asking, would you suggest like a short video clips for art promotion? And I guess to add on to Gus's question, would you want to watermark a video or things like that? Or is that just doing too much for a video?
You know, there's some different formats of videos. Like I use iMovie, and it does a little bit of watermarking in its own. And I know there's ways to do watermark the video. But if you're going to do those video promotions, I would just go with whatever is comfortable. And usually if you're going to upload those, they have at least a couple of versions, like a high definition version and a lower definition version. But if it's a moving image, it would be tough to try and steal. I would be more concerned about somebody stealing the whole clip and misnaming it or re-editing it, which has happened. And I'm not sure what you could do about a moving image. I'm not real familiar with video and video editing. I've only done a little bit.
Oh, yeah, it looks like Chris actually just shared a Joint Photographic Experts group, JPEG.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Thanks, Chris. So yeah, those were just the questions that we had on Facebook Live. So if anybody that's part of our Zoom group that we brought in to talk with Robert right here, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask away.
No questions? I answered everybody's question. You're all confident in protecting your images now.
Hi, this is Leslie. Robert, I have a question.
Sure.
Just kind of reconfirming what you said. So a print magazine called me last week and asked for images for an upcoming market issue that they're doing. And they said, just send us the images as big as you can get them. So in that instance, it's okay to send like a 16-inch by 22-inch 300 DPI image?
You know, if it's a magazine, you know, how big is a magazine going to print them? The most are going to print them as 8.5 by 11.
Right.
So I would start
right.
down. About the only, I usually send those type of magazines like an 8 by 10 at the most. Because that's all they need.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. If it was like a museum, and maybe you're doing a show at a museum and they want to print a giant banner of your stuff, you might go as large as you can, but you really shouldn't need to with any kind of magazine or periodical.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. He just said as big as you can get it. So
yeah.
that was the original size from the photographer. So that's what I sent, but that makes sense. The 8 by 10. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, jokes about my head, anything?
Oh, kia ora, it's Linnell Hoodia here from, I'm ringing from New Zealand, or I'm joining from New Zealand. I'm an intellectual property lawyer here in New Zealand, and I work with a lot of artists here who face the same issues that you've just talked about today, which is why I joined the session. And just to share, you know, that what you've shared is pretty much exactly what we encounter here with our traditional artworks.
Awesome.
So thank you for sharing. I know that collective voice is very important. So you know, if we see, it's also important across boundaries and across territories to make sure that we're supporting each other in these sorts of disputes. So yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for getting on the call from down there.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth. So my question is, you were talking about having sort of a network amongst artists to kind of keep track of, you know, what you find that isn't exactly kosher with what's going on there. Is there like a set group that people can kind of connect on, or is it just, you know who you know?
Well, I mean, it's always it's easier with you know who you know, but you can, you know, reach out to other artists. I always, if I see something that I think is wrong, and I happen to know that artist just because I follow them on Facebook or Instagram, I'll tell them, because I would want somebody to tell me that, right?
Right.
And so that kind of just grows your network a little bit every time. Or, you know, if I like them, I'll say, hey, awesome work, and that kind of grows your network. I don't really have any specific like group, although I've heard people talk about creating one, like a Native Arts Protection Group or non-appropriation image group. But I think with all the ins and outs of that, it'd be kind of tough. It's tough for the Indian Arts and Crafts Board to police it, let alone try to prosecute it. So it's really just, you know, asking your clients and your fans and your other artists, hey, if you happen to see anything out there that you think that I wouldn't appreciate, let me know, please.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Any other questions?
I really don't have any question, Robert. Just say hi and how you doing. And I'm getting ready to launch my website after so many years trying to put it together.
Good to hear. About time.
I know.
Christopher Bordeaux is another awesome photographer, everybody. He was once the best photographer in the world at one time, he told me.
Yeah, still the greatest native photographer in the world.
That's right. That's right.
Elizabeth was talking about a group. We're trying to get a co-op started, branching off from Racing Magpie in Rapid City. We're trying to get a co-op started so we can have some protection for a lot of Native artists in and around Rapid City.
That would be awesome.
So just contact Racing Magpie in Rapid City if you want any information.
Chris, could you send that link to Hillary, and we can get her.
She knows it. So yeah.
Great.
And then all the things that you were saying, I really appreciate it. That really helps a lot in how I do that. I get people asking to see my images, and I always try to get them real small, and then I try watermarks, but it's like it takes away from all of it. And
yeah,
I think, you know, your ideas are really good ideas. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
Gonna miss you at the shows this summer.
Yeah. We'll get to see you till next year.
Yeah.
Be safe. Be safe.
You too. Yeah. Stay healthy.
You too. Any other questions?
I have a quick question, Robert. With you kind of sharing there are people out there that are going to be really true to their word, and with the art you know, the images that you do share and they're using it for the right purposes. But then there's also other groups of people that just will be doing the opposite, unfortunately. And from your personal experience, like, and you don't have to name names, but do you feel like you hit that more often, or Indigenous artists in particular hit it more often with like magazines or online articles or blogs, or is it like newspaper or even museums? They could have, you know, not written proper paperwork for you to fill out to give the rights for them to share certain works if they were donated or if it was part of an exhibit.
I think, this is just my opinion, but I think Native artists as a group are always overlooked, misused. Our imagery gets used without our permission all the time. They just think, oh, I don't know if they just think, oh, we're Native and nobody cares about us, or we don't get enough highlighting or whatever, that nobody's going to actually do anything. I don't know if that's the case, but it sure seems that way. In my personal experience, what I have done with people that have misused my images is I've first usually got a hold of them either email or like Facebook Messenger, and made sure that I took a screenshot, both of the email and kept a copy, and of the message, and told them that's my image. You know, can I ask where you're using it? I don't remember ever giving you permission to use it. You know, start off just, you know, polite and ask questions, and then hopefully they give them to me, and then I let them know, well, you didn't ask, you know, could you please take it down? Or at the very least, you know, if it's for something like something tribal or something for kids, I said, well, could you at least credit me, you know, credit the artist? That's the least you could do. You should have asked for permission first, but you can credit. But anyway, still keep photos of that conversation and save them so that you have a trail, so that if hopefully if it eventually comes to something that you have to get a lawyer, you'll have this information for that lawyer, right? Hopefully it doesn't go that far, but I always keep it. I've got a little folder. It doesn't have much in it, but it has a couple of conversations that I went through with some people, just for backup if I needed it. Usually most of the people that I've come across are very apologetic. You know, of course they didn't take the time to research who the image went to, but they say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was yours. I'll definitely either take it down or credit you. Most of the people will do that I've come across.
And I feel like sometimes that's a really uncomfortable conversation that I believe any artist feels like, oh gosh, how am I supposed to approach this? Oh, this is my work. You know, how do I keep a level head? How do I, you know, approach them and have them acknowledge this mistake? You know, and I think it's mostly a confidence. It's something to do with confidence. Do you agree, or is there a better way for an artist to kind of prepare themselves for an interaction? Because unfortunately, it's not an if, but a when.
Right. I totally agree that it has a lot to do with confidence, and also the way you broach the subject. You know, if you come in guns blazing and what the hell are you doing with my image? I never told you. You know, most people are going to automatically get their hackles up, and you know, there's going to be a tug of war right then and there. But if you approach it, hey, what are you using that image for? Did you ever ask for permission for the artist? You know, I happen to be the artist. You didn't happen to ask me. Can I ask why you didn't look me up? Or, you know, kind of approach it like, you know, I'm not going to jump on your case, but this is my work and I don't want it misused. You know, I think that goes a long way to creating, rather than an argument, a dialogue, which helps solve more situations than, you know, getting lawyers involved. Any other questions, comments? I see that Linnell posted a comment about traditional artworks and people assuming they don't have any protection or available for all to use. I see that a lot, especially with sacred sites or maybe pictograms that they plaster them all over. And of course, I see non-natives using them for parts of their logo or parts of their company. You know, especially around here local, and I see other people doing it. But from what I gleaned from Teresa Secord's webinar on copyright and intellectual property, that those do have some protection for tribes on people doing that. I would love to see a test lawsuit so that there'd be some precedent for that, but they are afforded some limited copyright protection, I'm told.
And I also wonder too, Robert, like I know that with songs and other works that are that don't pop up as indigenous whenever it's like there's a news broadcast about it, but like copyright's only good for like 60, 70 years. And then after that, you can do it for another, I forgot how many. I mean, like Disney's well known for pushing that. They lobby for that kind of stuff. And do you feel like there, you know, it almost feels like, especially with the sacred sites and monuments and such, like maybe that, do you think that those images or artwork related to that, that's past that copyright should not even be part of this conversation? It should be something totally separate?
I don't know. And my opinion is that would, you know, you'd have to have a really good discussion, and it would have to be like a week-long discussion on stuff like that, because I'm sure that there's opinions out there and some precedent that I don't even know about when it comes to stuff like that. I love Arapaho culture, and there are certain things that I thought were taboo and inviolate when it comes to copyright and stuff like that. But then I saw on iTunes some Arapaho Sundance songs. In our culture, we're not supposed to sell any of our culture like that. But I saw it on there. I don't know who recorded it and put it on sale on iTunes, but it's there. There's a whole album. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of ins and outs in that. And like I said, I've seen people use portions of pictographs in their like company logo.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how I feel about that either. Even if they're native, you know, because that way you're kind of, I don't know, it's difficult to explain, and it's a hard issue all around when it comes to some cultural things.
No, I think as you put it, Robert, this would at least be a week-long discussion with a lot of people that would need to be part of that conversation. But I guess I can open it up to the rest of the participants, how they feel about this topic as well, especially with Linnell's comment really being the catalyst to have us have this conversation within this webinar. It's really important.
Right. Linnell, would you have any comments on like the amount of non-native people that get like Maori tattoos, Polynesian tattoos? I mean,
Yeah, there's a lot, and I think there's varying views on the correct procedure, and I guess the one of the main points we find is people don't go to the traditional tamoko artists, our traditional tattoo artists that would create a unique tattoo specifically for you based on your genealogy, where you're from, and so it would tell a story. And so a lot of the time you have people who just see a nice pretty design and copy it, and not really understand what the background is. or, you know, and if in the association with those images. And so that's when I think the crossing the line is completely inappropriate. But in terms, I do know that some traditional Māori art tattoo artists do give Māori tattoos to non-Māori and believe that they can, provided, you know, they've gone through the correct process. So yeah, so there's varying views, and some people are like, no, you can't give them Māori tattoos at all. But so I sort of sit, you know, in that I think it's okay so long as they've gone to the right type of artist and got that, you know, that bigger connection and that sort of more spiritual understanding of where it comes from, rather than, you know, being completely oblivious to any meaning that goes into that particular design.
Right.
So yeah, and I think there's, you know, the more we can educate about our culture, then the more likely those people will embrace, you know, our issues that we have when people misuse images like the ones that you've talked about. You know, they understand you know, the reasons why we can't use our images in certain ways. They understand why it's inappropriate to put, in Māori culture, for example, a person's head on food, you know, as a trademark. You know, there's all of these sort of underpinning values that apply to how we share our imagery and our knowledge that are just inconsistent with the traditional intellectual property framework, which is why we run into these problems. I've sort of segued us into another area, which I'm sorry I did that. But
I was just going to say, yeah, this particular webinar was about individual artist images, but we could expand that into cultural images. You know, that'd be another 2-week long discussion on non-natives using native imagery in their artwork. I mean, geez, I mean, the Southwest would be empty of most artists if you told non-native artists they couldn't put native imagery in their artwork. Interestingly enough, one art show that I have just been accepted into, and I posted it on my personal page, the High Desert Museum's auction, and it's open to all artists, but they're doing Western artwork. They specifically said you cannot submit any native imagery or have any native imagery in your work unless you have native ancestry, which is the first time I've ever heard any open call, any non-native specific show do that. The first one I've ever even heard of. You know, there's native specific shows that you can only enter if you're native. This is the only one I know of that's open to everybody and said, if you want to put work in or submit for jurying and you have native imagery in there, native people, native symbols, you have to be native. I thought that was awesome.
I agree. That is awesome. And
in fact, I called the curator, and of course during the pandemic, nobody's around, so I left about 3 really long rambling messages. Oh, thank you. You're the first ones to do this. So it's changing, but it's changing.
Agree.
No, yeah, thanks, Robert, and congratulations on getting in. That's really wonderful news. That High Desert's a pretty amazing space. And I also believe too, talking about tattoos, I mean, that's another art form. I mean, that's another thing that people do for a living and also share their cultural ways of knowing. So I think it was definitely on point with what we're talking about. And I do know a lot of, not so much Indigenous artists that are tattoo artists, but I mean, they use social media for the same exact thing as any other art form or artist would as well. And they aren't putting watermarks on their works. They are, you know what I mean? Like some are, some aren't. I mean, we're all in the same metaphorical boat, so to speak, when it comes to this issue.
Totally agree. Totally agree. we have a little bit more time. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss, talk about?
And also, if anybody has any input for Wednesday's session, we're going to do a virtual office hour, which Robert's going to just go over just a summary of what was covered today, as well as anything that he may come along, you know, the next 24, 48 hours that he thinks would be really cool to share. And we'll have the same type of group of discussion on Zoom. So definitely check out our registration. I can share that in the link on both groups. And just, we just would love to have everybody part of this conversation again, because I think it's really great that we can get people in a virtual group together to really share on a topic that at its core, it's about artists supporting each other. So. Well, if there aren't any other questions, Robert, I guess we can let everybody out a little early today.
Okay.
Yeah, just finish up and feel free to join us on Wednesday for our virtual office hour. It's going to be a pretty casual summary, hangout, questions, learning together. So yeah, we hope to see everybody there if they can make it. And thanks everybody on Facebook Live as well as Zoom for participating. You really added to this conversation. Thank you. And have a wonderful Monday, everyone.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you follow me on Facebook or Instagram and want to get a hold of me and ask me more questions, please feel free. Thanks for tuning in. I hope I didn't ramble too much, and I hope it gave you some good information.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stay safe. See you
You
all.
too.
Thanks, Chris.